Lieutenant Commander Rachel Torres, a highly decorated Navy SEAL sniper, stood at the center of a packed military courtroom. Her wrists were bound in cold steel cuffs, a stark contrast to the crisp perfection of her dress uniform. The tension in the room was suffocating, every eye fixed on her, every whisper a sharp knife of judgment. She wasn't on trial for cowardice or failure. She was there because, on a classified mission in Afghanistan, she had chosen humanity over orders. Rachel had spotted a group of local children wandering toward an area rigged with explosives. The official directive was clear: stay on course, ignore non-mission targets. But her instincts and her heart rebelled. She took the shot, warning the children and triggering the hidden IED prematurely. The blast echoed through the village, but no lives were lost that day. No body bags. Just frightened, safe children. Now, months later, she faced military justice for defying a direct command. The prosecution painted her as reckless. The defense tried to explain the impossible choice she'd made. But the crowd in the courtroom, many in uniform, whispered with a mixture of disapproval and quiet awe. To some, she was a traitor to the chain of command. To others, a silent hero whose courage went beyond protocol. Rachel stood quietly, eyes tired but unbroken. Not pleading. Not apologizing. Just waiting, for the system she served to decide whether compassion was a crime. In that courtroom, it wasn't just her fate on trial, it was the soul of the uniform itself. The scorching sun beat down on the dusty streets of a small Afghan village as Rachel moved silently along the rooftop, her sniper rifle scanning the terrain. Her mission was clear: overwatch for a unit escorting a convoy. But something caught her eye, a glint in the dirt near the village school, partially buried beneath rubble. Years of experience kicked in. It was an IED, cleverly hidden, deadly precise. She quickly radioed command, reporting the device. The reply came back sharp and cold: stay on mission. Do not engage. Maintain position. Rachel hesitated. Then she saw them, 3 children, no older than 7, skipping along the narrow path straight toward the bomb. Her heart pounded. The protocol was clear, but so was the danger. Without another word, she broke formation. One carefully aimed shot, metal sparked. A half-second later, the explosion tore through the air where the kids would have stepped. Dust and smoke billowed. Screams rang out. But the children were alive. Dazed, trembling, but alive. Rachel dropped from her perch, sprinting through the chaos. She scooped up the youngest, a wide-eyed girl sobbing into her chest. As the smoke cleared, she cradled the child and whispered, "You're safe now." She knew what she'd just done. She'd saved lives. But she'd also disobeyed orders. That moment of humanity, pure, instinctive, maternal, would cost her dearly. Still, as the child clung to her, Rachel felt no regret. She hadn't just been a soldier that day. She'd been something even more powerful, a protector. The judge cleared his throat, the weight of the courtroom pressing down like a storm ready to break. He glanced over his glasses, voice low and deliberate. Lieutenant Commander Rachel Torres. The words hung in the air, each syllable laced with consequence. On the prosecution's bench, the officer stood rigid, his tone clinical as he reiterated Rachel's defiance of orders, labeling her a risk to the chain of command. Rachel didn't flinch. Her posture was steady, her hands still cuffed. But as the judge continued, a single tear broke free, carving a silent path down her cheek. It wasn't fear. It was the weight of everything: the children she'd saved, the honor she now stood to lose, the silence of a system that didn't understand compassion in the line of fire. Suddenly, the heavy wooden doors creaked open. Heads turned. The bailiff took a breath but said nothing. A figure stepped through, silver-haired, shoulders broad, medals gleaming. Admiral Peter Monroe. The room stilled instantly. The judge paused mid-sentence. Admiral Monroe didn't speak, he didn't need to. His presence alone shifted the air. Decorated across 5 wars, a symbol of integrity and valor, Monroe walking into that courtroom unannounced was not procedure, it was purpose. Even the prosecutor lowered his gaze. Rachel looked up slowly, her breath caught. The Admiral nodded at her, eyes filled not just with authority, but with understanding. In that frozen moment, everyone realized the narrative was no longer in the hands of paperwork. It was now in the hands of history. Admiral Monroe stepped forward, not waiting for permission. The courtroom, still caught in breathless silence, made no move to stop him. The judge looked up, startled but respectful, and gave a slight nod. Monroe stood tall at the front aisle, facing everyone. Not just the judge, not just the jury, but the entire room. "She disobeyed," he said, voice deep and steady. "Yes. But she disobeyed in the name of something greater than orders. She upheld the true values this uniform was built on: courage, compassion, and humanity." His words cut through the air like a command in battle. He turned toward Rachel, then back to the judge. "You've all seen her record. You've read the briefings. But those papers won't tell you about the night she shielded 3 wounded civilians with her own body during a mortar attack. They won't mention the 22 missions she led without losing a single teammate. Or how she spent her off hours teaching local girls to read in villages where a book was a weapon." The courtroom began to shift. The once critical eyes softened. The jurors leaned forward, the prosecutor sat stone-faced but silent. "We don't court-martial heroes," Monroe said, his voice rising with quiet fire. "We honor them. Because if we punish someone for saving lives, for showing mercy, then what does this uniform even mean?" Rachel looked up, her eyes locking with his. For the first time since the trial began, she felt the tide begin to turn, not just in the courtroom, but in the hearts of those within it. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting golden beams across the courtroom floor as the judge set down his papers. His voice, once rigid, now carried a hint of emotion. "In light of the testimony and the values this nation holds dear, all charges are dismissed." The clang of the gavel echoed like thunder, final, freeing. A hushed breath swept through the room. The bailiff stepped forward and removed the cuffs from Rachel's wrists. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from a tidal wave of relief she'd held back for months. Rachel stood slowly, her spine straight, her eyes shining with restrained emotion. As she turned to exit, Admiral Monroe met her halfway. He brought his hand to his brow and saluted her, crisp, firm, reverent. The silence broke. One by one, soldiers in uniform stood from the benches. First one. Then another. Then dozens. Each raised a salute, not to a disobedient officer, but to a hero who had reminded them all what duty truly meant. Civilians followed, placing hands over hearts, eyes misting with respect. And then, near the back of the room, almost hidden behind a tall Marine, a small face appeared. A young Afghan girl, eyes wide with recognition. She didn't speak, but her lips moved gently, "Thank you." Rachel froze, overcome. For the first time, the weight she carried began to lift. In that sacred moment, surrounded by silence, sunlight, and salutes, she didn't just win her freedom, she reclaimed her honor, and reminded a nation of its soul.